Well, hello everybody. Thank you for joining us here to learn a little bit about how GERnétic, the skincare range, helps to treat those that have had severe and nasty damage to their skin, be it through mechanical, be it through things like burns or any other way that their skin's been damaged. My name's Jemima. I am the educator for GERnétic, working for Vital Plus for Victoria. I have a 30+ year background in beauty therapy and have had the privilege of working with GERnétic when I had my own skin and wellness business in Melbourne quite a few years ago now. Amongst all the work that we did treating the skin and plus all the traditional beauty therapy treatments, I think the biggest honour and the biggest privilege and the biggest outcomes that had the impact on my career was working with people that had been severely burnt. So that was a real interesting element to beauty therapy back then, because it wasn't something that's traditionally treated within the beauty therapy industry. So let's talk a little bit about how and when GERnétic came to be. I'm just going to see if that's working. Here we go. So for those of you that don't know much about the GERnétic background, I've got a little bit of information here for you before we kick off into the before and after photos to show you just how effective working with GERnétic on damaged skin can be. So as you can see here, we have a picture of Mr. Laporte. He is the inventor of the GERnétic skincare range. But long before it became a skincare range, it was actually working on burn patients within a French hospital. So Mr. Laporte's background, he was a cellular biologist. That was his specialty, in looking and understanding at every single cell within our body. And he was also a genetologist, which is the study of aging, for those of you that may not know what that is. So he had a real interest and passion in understanding the cells of our skin, or the cells of our body, I should say, and actually how those cells age as we age. He spent many, many years really focusing on understanding and conducting research into the transdermal penetration or the absorption of skincare products into the skin. He is the absolute vision, and he was a visionary. He was way ahead of his time in understanding around keeping the skin barrier intact. And you'll know that that's really a focus in the skin and beauty industry currently. He was talking about that 50 to 60 years ago, the importance of that, because as we know, the skin is our protection, it's our barrier. So Mr. Laporte was working in a French hospital in the early 1960s, and he was asked to work with the burns patients within this French hospital purely because they knew of his background in the study of cells and understanding the biology of how our cells function. And as you know, with damaged cells, they need to be repaired, but that's very, very hard to do. That's why he was chosen, especially to work with them within the burns hospital, because of his understanding and background of cellular biology. And it was through this work and through the trial and error and working with different concoctions and getting things right through his research that he really understood, and his fundamental concept comes back to the ability of the skin to rebuild itself when the nutritional elements are precisely dosed to the skin and delivered correctly. That's where we can have an impact on repairing and regenerating the skin. So based on the cellular biology, the study of the cells, it encompasses everything around how they function, what they need, what they don't need, their properties, their structure, the elements that will absolutely impact the cells. And we know that can be from the sun, it can be from stress, it can be from environmental damage, it can be from nutritional deficiencies. GERnétic has always been designed to address the cause and not the symptom. That's why it's always had a very holistic approach to treating skincare. Within its range, before it was designed as a full skincare range, there was two products that were first invented in the 1970s, and that was the Synchro and the Cytobi. These two products, they form the basis of the range, and they work to heal and repair the skin, especially in the case of burnt and damaged skin. So think about if it can treat and work on a burnt skin, a damaged skin, if it can treat on that, imagine how good it is on a skin that doesn't have any damage or burns, and it has issues around being undernourished, or it has issues with aging. The Synchro and Cytobi can treat everything from damaged, severely damaged, burnt skin to then helping to treat any other nutritional deficiency, and also help slow down the effects and the signs of aging. In 1970, the Synchro and Cytobi was developed, as we just said, and it wasn't until some years later, it was 1977, when the actual skincare range was then fully developed and brought to market, once the understanding of how effective the Synchro and Cytobi was. And then there was a very small range put together and launched in the late 1970s. That's just a little bit of a background to help you understand a little bit about where this has all come from. Now, for us in treating the skin, I wanted to, before we kick into some of the images, I wanted to just maybe give you all a warning that there are some pretty graphic images to come, and some of them are of children who are all doing well now. They're in full recovery and doing incredibly well. But to give you some real true understanding around how effective genetic can be in helping the burns, we do have the images of straight after they have been burnt to a year later with the recovery underway. We also have an image or a couple of images of people with other types of injuries through IPL damage and just through a complete accident. So about to come is the first image for a little young man who was burnt back in 2019. Just go to that slide. So this little boy was 10 years old at the time of his injury and his burn. He was damaged. You can see the damage there to the very top part of his thigh. He was also burnt across his abdomen, and he had some burns on the front of his hands. Luckily, his genitals were okay, but you can see here, this is pretty much the days after the initial burn took place. This young man I actually know personally. He's a family friend of ours, so I've been involved in the process of his treatment from the time that he was injured. He was in the first operation that he had done, the first treatment where they treated the skin, there was no skin grafting done. He was actually treated and the wound was dressed, and he was sent home, and he had further operations along the way in the very initial early days in the first month. And when the final operation was done, just to help with the skin being peeled correctly, it was wrapped very well, and he was sent home from the hospital, and the advice from the surgeons was to use QV cream once the dressing came off the burn. So these are tracking from the end of July to the end of August. His injury took place at the very beginning of July. So this is a few weeks on after he had been released from the hospital. You can see here the very first picture with the yellow shorts here at the back. You can see how widespread the redness is from here, and it wrapped all around to the internal side of his leg here. There was two main burn points, this one here and this burn point here. I'm hoping you can see my pointer as I'm doing that. So they were the initial flash points onto the skin and the burn. The wound is quite open here and through here as well. And you can see here as it's going later into the next month, into the early August, this is where you can see here, this is getting a little bit more dotty almost around here, and that flesh wound is quite open. So what would be happening for this young man is that he would be having a bandage right around this area here, and then the Cytobi was applied to the outer areas that wasn't as heavily bandaged initially. And then here you can see by the end of August, the difference, the redness has gone down quite a lot over the whole of the leg. And you can still see here though the main, the burn points here. And this one here in particular was quite a slow mending, it was a very slow to heal itself over. The next going on to into September, you can see again here, this same burn point here, and the flash point here is still quite red. And there was some concern here, it wasn't actually healing over as quickly or as well as they would like it to be. In this story of this young man's burns, he and his family were trying very hard to avoid having to have skin graft done. He wasn't very comfortable at all with being in hospital or having injections. So the whole point of what work we were doing with this young man was to be able to do as much as we could to improve and heal the skin, and to also help avoid having to have a skin graft done. As time went on, you can see here into November, it was quite a bit different. The redness had really gone, the flash points had really healed over, and they weren't too raised at that point. They were healing quite well. So this was doing everyday Cytobi and Synchro on the wound. Back at these ones, sorry, I should have said to you, this one here, this was only using Cytobi in the very early days because of how red it was and how raw it was. The Cytobi and Synchro both can treat burns, but the Cytobi has a greater element of anti-inflammatory properties to it, which is why we use Cytobi on a brand new burn. So this was done morning and night time with the Cytobi only. And it was here that we started to go into the Synchro and Cytobi being used together. So Synchro and Cytobi, both morning and night time, were used on the wound, on the leg, all over after it had been bathed correctly. So you can see from here, this section here, how it looks over here. It was starting to be raised and becoming keloid-like onto the area. And as time went on with the treatment of what was happening here, there was a number of things also taking place amongst the topical work with the Cytobi and Synchro. There was also nutritional support being done, so quite a lot of vitamins and mineral support. There was a real focus on this young man's sleep, and also some trauma recovery techniques to help move the emotion out and through the body. As the November went on and then into the January, you can see quite a difference. There is nowhere near as much redness or flushing around that leg. But still the main points here, you can see was still healing over right through that spot there. So the Synchro became a stronger focus as the healing went on. Cytobi was still being used, but Synchro was being used much more intently and even more regularly as the time went on and Cytobi dropped off a little bit. And then you can see over here, within a year, the difference in this young man's leg is quite remarkable. There is no redness at all. The skin is very smooth and soft to touch. There is a lot of flexibility and movement and give in his leg. He was able to get back to playing sports relatively quickly, which isn't always the case with burns. If you haven't seen a burn yourself up close or in person, one of the biggest issues that burnt skin has is that it becomes very tight, and it's very constricted. So there's not as much movement and give into that area. With the Synchro and Cytobi being applied and the nutritional elements being delivered and the cell recovery taking place, what happens is the skin goes from being very tight to just being a little bit more loose, and it has some movement and give into it. So it has a bit more flexibility to the skin, allowing them to actually do things that are normal in their life, like playing sport. So this next slide's going to just oh, that's not going too fast. This one's going to just show you within a 12-month period, what Synchro and Cytobi was able to do for this young man and his family, who were very much trying and wanting to avoid a skin graft as much as they possibly could. So from his time in hospital with the image on the left to just on a year later, the image on the right, That was the difference that was achieved within that very, very first year of Synchro and Cytobi. His mum does tell me that he isn't probably as good at applying the Synchro since that time. He was quite happy with how his leg was looking, and it was a bit of a harder case to try to get him to keep doing the Synchro morning and night time. They are potentially looking at maybe doing some laser treatment on this, some low-level light laser, and that would just be incredible to help continue the healing with the skin. But at the same time, this young man, he's quite okay with how his skin actually looks. He's not too fussed by how it looks. And I saw him just recently, and it looks even better than that with the top element, this bit here. You can barely even see, there's no color, there's hardly any color to that, and you've really got to almost look hard to see the lower part of the burn on his leg. So that's a great outcome for this little boy, and the ability to not have to be in hospital having any further operations. The laser will be easy enough to be done to help that to continue to heal itself. So this one is a different story. This is not a burn from anything other than this young lady, Cassie Dodd. She had squeezed lime juice, and then she had spilt it onto her leg. And you can see here on the left image, that was what it looked like when it was first done. And the darkness here through the pigment, almost pigmenting color through this area here where it's happened, and it was a more open wound in this section here. So this photo on the right is 3 months post this lime juice burn to her leg. So she used Cytobi morning and night time because, again, it was we caught the burn really, really quickly. We knew that she had done this not long after it had happened. So we were using Cytobi initially to really just to help keep the skin calmer and to help the inflammation be reduced, so that it was much calmer, to allow the healing to continue before anything else was added into her routine. So something as simple as lime juice, quite acidic onto the skin, has done that damage to her. And on the right hand side, it's much better. She was very happy with that outcome. This young lady here, we came across in one of the professional beauty therapy groups, and she had posted about a 2nd-degree burns that she had acquired as a result of an IPL treatment from a person who wasn't experienced with the machine that they were using. This photo is quite distressing to see that something that someone is going to have done with a professional and not having the right training or the right understanding of what they were doing. And this was the outcome for this young girl, and the damage was right across the whole of her back. She initially was happy to have it done because she was having some acne occurring on the shoulder area and the top half of her back, and that was why she was having the IPL done. So this is when it first happened, and this is when we first started working with Danny to help her with the burns to her back. And you can see how far down they are coming from, right across actually went over the shoulder here, and it came right down to, I guess you would call, the base of the bra line to where it had happened. So from the damage of that being so incredibly red and inflamed, it was painful, it was itchy, the result was pretty intense. So we didn't know her when it first happened. We were in contact with her a little while after it had taken place. And from the first time that we met her, this is how it looked on the left-hand side. And the elements right through here were all around this area, and she couldn't be outside wearing anything like a bikini or bathers because of the damage to her skin. She lives in Queensland, so she lives in a warm and hot climate and tends to be wearing those sorts of things far more regularly than those of us that live in Melbourne. On the right-hand side, you can see the colour change as we had kicked off our work with her. We were doing, because we caught it a bit later, we were doing work with Synchro and Cytobi. That's what we started to treat her back with in the early days. And it was then a little while later we added in some immuno, for those of you that know the immuno product, which I'll come back to shortly. But Synchro and Cytobi were the main products used here to help keep the inflammation down, but to also help treat the colour and the damage that you can see on her skin now. We also, within Vital Plus, have another range that we have called Jumo, and that was very much based on skin microbiome balance, which is very much what GERnétic is about. So that was why we had also given the Jumo to Danny to use as a body wash to help with her skin microbiome being intact. And the Synchro and Immuno were the two products that were being mixed together to have an even greater stimulation and regeneration for the cellular turnover within her skin, as well as the Cytobi on top of that, to just help keep things ticking along, with it being extra nourishment for the regeneration that her skin needed. So from the top left-hand photo there, when we first met her, to a 2-month mark, the bottom right-hand photo, you can see there, the skin had much improved. She was talking about it feeling a lot healthier, a lot more hydrated. It wasn't itchy. The lumpiness had really settled down. The pigmentation color was reduced. And our objective for Danny was to help her skin be as best as it possibly could be from a health perspective, to be able to then, in the months to come, continue on with having some other laser treatments that were designed pretty much for post-operative work and to really help to clear those scars up. We know that the stronger and the healthier that the skin is at any point for any mechanical or machine work to be done, the stronger and healthier the skin is, the greater the outcome will even be for laser or any other work that needs to be done, because it's got the best chance of being able to take up and work with whatever the lasers or the other work that needs to be done, be it skin needling, there's anything else that she might have done. The skin is in its healthiest position to recover quickly and well, and not just for a short term, but for a long-term outcome, which is what she was wanting. Next, we have a young, brave, very brave little girl who was also injured with some burns accidentally, like our young man earlier on. This young little lass got a lot of spunk, and she was injured on her legs and arms, as you can see here. And she also had some damage done to her torso. And these images here were from July last year, July 2021. She had been in hospital and had some skin grafting already done to her skin immediately after the injury. So her parents were very concerned around the long-term damage to her skin. This young girl was only 3 years old at the time of her injury, and the skin grafting was done. Once she was out of hospital, she is wearing a pressure suit, a pressure body suit every day, but it would be taken off to be bathed every night. So at night time, this young little girl, after her bath, would be applying the Synchro and Cytobi to her burns. So you can see here right across the torso, it's very red, it's very lumpy. You can see how lumpy it is right through here. It is raised, so it was keloiding. You can see around the arm area as well. And you can see on this image from the left that the nipple has also been damaged. So her mother was quite concerned around what would be the outcome for the nipple as she grew, and how would the skin grow with her as she did start to grow up. So within a 6-month period, you can see here the top photos were taken in July in 2021, and the bottom photos were taken mid-December 2021. And the colour, the texture, the feel, the look of the skin has improved drastically in that 6-month period, with the pressure suit wearing and with the care that has been given by her mum and dad to apply the Synchro and Cytobi creams to this young little girl every morning and every night time. The colour from here to here is significantly different. You can see how much redness has come out of the arm from the top photo to the bottom photo, and even the difference in the legs. If you look at both the top photo where it's quite red and pink, it's almost have a purple colour to it. You can see it is not gone, but it's certainly reduced in the bottom image here for her. This is a slide to show you what it's been like for a year that she has been having GERnétic help her skin with the Synchro and Cytobi. So the very first picture on the left being from July last year, the middle image from December of last year, and now you can see the image on the right is of her skin in August. Oh, that says August 2021. That should be saying August 2022. I'll need to correct that, so that you can see a 12-month period of the difference in her skin. If you look at the texture, if you look at the colour, if you look at almost the height of where the skin is keloid and raised, from the left to the right image, it is significantly different. You'll also see the difference in the nipple from the left image to the right image. The nipple is more pronounced in the right image. That doesn't have the redness around it. The scarring and the tissue is not as raised, nowhere near as raised as what it was when that burn was initially done. So this young girl will potentially be having, she has physio regularly. She wears the burn suit. There's been a number of nutritional elements that have been in support of her as well. We did do an interview with the inventors and the owners of Cell Charge back early in February of this year, 2022. This young girl was also using Cell Charge internally and externally onto the burns in an area on her leg to help to see if that was going to help give some extra support where it was quite raised and damaged. So, a great outcome for this young girl. These are just a few more images of the initial photo back in early July 2021 to the right hand image, which is August 2022. Quite a difference. This is the image of under the arm, the inside of the arm, and how much that has healed and is continuing to heal within a year of the Synchro and Cytobi onto her skin. And then there was, I thought, one more. No, there's not one more. So for the creams that have been used on these skins that have been damaged, within GERnétic, the two hero products are Synchro and Cytobi, and they were specially designed to treat the burnt skin. They are full, chock-a-block full of amino acids, vitamins and minerals and support ingredients to be able to deliver the nutrients to the cellular level to help them improve. We also have within GERnétic some new creams and ampules that have been released. So just earlier this year, we had the Sensi ampules that has been released. We've had the post-epilation cream, which is designed to be used on a skin that's had IPL or laser or any mechanical treatment like waxing, threading, or anything that needs the skin to be cooled and healed without having an without having a histamine reaction is the design of the post-epilation. We had asked for that cream here in Australia to be designed by France because we know that is such a big component of what people are doing in the salons these days, and needing a post-gel light cream to go onto the skin to help cool and reduce any inflammation and heat in the skin. And we are also releasing in September of this year, so not too far away, the new cold cream mousse, which is an exciting new cream designed to help skin barrier damage, any redness, rosacea, eczema, psoriasis, all of those sort of things. So you'll be able to see those coming up soon. And if you haven't been onto our Vital Plus Instagram page or the YouTube channel, there is a heap of information on there around the Synchro and Cytobi products, the history of GERnétic and the full range. We haven't gone into covering off what the products are and what's in them, and the full breakdown of Synchro and Cytobi today. We have done those already in separate trainings, and we encourage you to go and have a look at those if you haven't seen those, because there is a lot more information about those products, because the Synchro and Cytobi are the hero products of the range. So that covers off an idea for you of how GERnétic can treat burns and scars from young to old, and for different things that are going on within a skin, all in conjunction with good emotional support and nutritional support along the way. So if anybody has any questions, we are opening up the floor to be able to ask them. And if not, you might be thinking a bit about them, and you might want to come back and have a look at some images. Again, feel free to do so. But if anyone has any questions around what we've been able to help the skins with, just put your hand up or unmute yourself and let Frank know.
I'm gonna just join in this. Thank you very much. I really enjoyed the presentation, and every time I see a child with a burn, my stomach just sort of twists. It's great to see the healing process that you've achieved, Jemima, with these young kids, and I think that one of the things that happens, or I know that from personal experience, that when you apply the Cytobi on a fresh burn, is that the sting pretty much immediately sort of appeases down. The pain that you get from a burn, you can feel how that sort of releases some of the pain. Is that something that they've mentioned?
Yes, that is right, Frank. Immediately, the Cytobi, because of its anti-inflammatory properties that are so strong amongst all the amino acids and the vitamins and the minerals, the design of Cytobi very much will have a fairly instant cooling and calming effect on that skin, and that's exactly what had happened. So for young children to be able to have that applied and not be an issue on an open wound is pretty incredible. And I'm saying all this, we aren't medical professionals, we're not burn specialists, we aren't doctors, we don't work in the hospital system, but we understand skin. And for the little boy, if you remember back early on, he was told to go home and use QV cream on his skin. Can you imagine the difference in what his skin would have been like if he'd just been using QV cream compared to what Cytobi was able to do for his skin, especially early on, and then to add in the Synchro as time goes on, because the Synchro has, while Synchro and Cytobi are both regenerators, Cytobi has more anti-inflammatory properties, but regeneration, and the Synchro also has the regeneration, but it has also strong immune building properties in that as well.
And I know also from a personal experience, because I've had a skin graft, that the stretching, the maneuverability of your skin is not hampered at all. You can go back to the stretching or the athletic movements that you may be doing. I know I can play tennis without feeling any pain or anything like that on my leg where the graft was taken. So it's definitely a miracle queen.
Yeah, and I often tell the story to people. In all the years of working with GERnétic and going to the events and the trainings with Jacqueline all those years ago, and hearing the background of where GERnétic came from, we heard those stories for many years. I heard them at all the trainings, and I was fascinated by that. And I can still remember to this day in my salon, treating my very first burn patient who had been burnt from the neck down quite severely, and I was able to give her a facial, including the massage and right across her décolletage and shoulders and up her neck, and it was just synchro everywhere. I couldn't do a lot to her skin, but I could do quite a bit of the synchro massaging. And I remember thinking before I started her treatment, oh my gosh, I hope that all the stories I've heard I
Yeah.
truly, because I'm about to treat this burn patient. And anyway, so she went home that night, and the next day I arrived at work and she was standing at the front door of my salon.
Right.
And I was thinking, oh my gosh, what's happened? Why is she here? I even get red thinking about the feeling of that happened to me. And I remember opening the front door of the salon, and she came in and she said to me, I had to come back and tell you something. She said, I had that facial with you yesterday. And she said, I was able to lift my arms higher this morning than I have since I was being burnt. And she was showing me how high she could lift her arms compared to where she could normally lift her arms. And that was such a big thing for her. And it was a real education and an eye-opener for me in understanding about what happens to the skin when it's being burnt. And she became a regular advocate for the use of synchro in her treatment, and her surgeons couldn't believe the difference in them and wanted to know what she was using. And this was 20 years ago. So whenever anybody is burnt or has an injury, of course we are only working in line with the medical and the medical advice and the professional advice they are given. A lot of doctors and surgeons will say, no, don't use anything but QV, and that's their professional opinion. It was just lucky that for this little boy that we were seeing the images of, I'm family friend, and they had heard some of these stories, and that's how it came about that we were able to treat him. And those images then were shared to some of the salons, and then the young girl that you saw, that was from another one of our salons in Sydney. She had seen the images of the young boy, and that was where that came to be. So it goes on from there.
Right. It's a great story. I've heard so many great stories. I've got Gabby who says, what was the most significant nutritional components you focused on, and was it through more food or supplements?
Very strongly, a lot of protein is required for the regeneration of the cells and the skin, and the minerals. Vitamins are really important, but the minerals, especially the things along the lines of the magnesiums and the zincs and the seleniums, in conjunction with particular amino acids, full proteins, that was the real focus, getting that into the system, along with his sleep and keeping the skin hydrated, because the fascia, the connective tissue that covers, that sits just under the skin, that protects all of the organs, the fascia is very much a communication system on its own. So that needs to be kept very fluid, very, very fresh and mobile, because otherwise that gets all tight around the burn in the skin. So the fascia being well hydrated through lots of good water, really clean water, so not tap water, sort of filtered water, along with good proteins and the minerals, that was the real focus for him.
Naturally, of course, eat good foods, organic if you can, and lots of veggies. You'll get lots of minerals in there too. Naomi says, thank you very much. Fascinating and incredible results.
They're life-changing for those young people. And look, we were thinking about putting other photos in of skin conditions, but we wanted to just keep this little session just pretty informative and pretty straight to the point around treating burns, and just highlighting that the Synchro and the Cytobi are the ones that we would be using if you came across somebody that was wanting some skin support, to make sure that their doctors know what they're doing or understand the medical procedure, never to treat an open wound, to make sure that you're only treating it once the dressing is allowed to be off and you can do some work onto the wound. And we would use Cytobi first to help reduce the inflammation, and then later on add in a little bit of this, or add in the Synchro down the track to support that as well. So, but always done in conjunction with doctors and parents and nutrition and all the emotional elements that happen as well.
I remember Mr. Laporte saying that when you combine the Synchro and the Cytobi, you're giving the skin practically everything it needs to be nourished and regenerated. I think he said something like 99% or something of that measure. So
yes, And if you remember, for those that have seen it, the Synchro and Cytobi training, where it lists all the individual amino acids and there's the slight difference in naming. It's a long list. That is, you know, it's like eating meat. It's a complete protein almost. That's the element. So this was just a little bit of information and images to show you. I'm sorry, I was having a few little computer problems there, but you got the gist of it.
Thank you so much, Jemima. It's been amazing. What a wonderful presentation and incredible results. I'm so happy. And thank you everybody for joining us. And please join us again for another presentation with Jemima. I hope very soon.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.